Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode. I know that I'm like matching the green screen this week, so it's like going to be a little trippy for all you guys. But my whole goal with my outfit today was basically to look like Archie Andrews from Riverdale. So hopefully I got that. But today we're going to have a cool episode because we have my friend Lindsey coming on, and Lindsey and I both work in the, I guess, film, the television, the video industry, and we're going to talk a bit about our experiences and Lindsey's new project. So without further ado, let me have Lindsey come on here. We're using a different software today, so just give me a little slack if I'm a little slow on it. But without further ado, here's Lindsey. Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Welcome,
How's
welcome,
it going?
welcome. It's going pretty good. I had a bunch of tech issues, but thankfully we got that sorted out. How's everything with you?
No complaints. Just, busy with the prep of the film, but I'm excited to be on the show, and thank you for having me and facilitating this pretty cool live stream.
No problem. And I look forward to getting a little more information on what's going on with the film. But before we get into all of that, would you mind giving a little bit of background of your, I guess, background in the industry? I know you have a lot of different hats that you've worn.
Yes. Sure. So I grew up in Long Island, and I started freelancing in film and TV when I was 13, which I know sounds so crazy, but I wanted to do it for so long. So I figured the best way to kind of tackle it and wade my way into the industry was to get an early start. So I started as a camera PA on the show. It was an MTV show, One Bad Choice it was called. And then from there, I kind of just snowballed into doing a ton of other jobs. I've done, everything in production you can imagine. I've produced, I've done wardrobe, I've been a PA, I've script coordinator. Everything under the sun you can imagine, except for hair and makeup. That's like the one thing I have not done. And I was actually able to do all that freelancing through high school, which was pretty cool. Because I went to West Islip High School, and my principal was really just lovely, and he let me get away with the attendance policy a little bit here and there. So I was able to kind of skip out on classes here and there and just pursue the freelance filmmaking that I really wanted to do. And then I got to fast forward to college years. I started out at Hunter College, which had a great program, but I felt like it lacked resources. So then I ended up transferring to Hofstra, where I met the lovely Celia and many other lovely filmmakers. But I kind of had the best of both worlds of being able to freelance and continue to do all the things that I was already doing while still kind of furthering my education and learning all that I could in Hofstra's programs. And I did this one project, which Celia, I'm sure you remember, was Theater 9, and that I think you were BTS on that, and that's
yes, I was taking the behind the scenes photos. Yes.
that's how we kicked off our friendship early on, and then that was actually before I was at Hofstra.
Yes, that was.
And you were at Hofstra, right, at that point?
Yes, yeah. I was.
Yeah. So that's how we got linked in, and thankful for that because Celia is a lovely collaborator and just an all-around amazing person. But yeah, from there, I really just freelanced. I did 1,000,001 jobs. I was kind of an eager go-getter type that was like, I need to figure this out. I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that, and just took whatever job came at me. And I guess kind of leading into my more professional years of my career, I worked in visual effects for a little bit, and then I ended up in my senior year of college working for director Reed Morano, who is now, I have since stepped away from that position, but 3 years later, she's still my mentor and a phenomenal person, and I'm so grateful for what I've learned from her under those 3 years of having her guidance, and that kind of leads me to now where I'm freelance directing and, just full steam ahead with a directing career.
You've worn many hats over the years.
Too many. Probably way too many. Yeah.
Well, the good thing about wearing so many hats is you actually get to learn what everyone else does. to complement what you want to be doing, if that makes sense. I think that makes sense. Because
Totally.
doing all of the different jobs, like if you need something done, you know exactly the person to go to, who to ask for certain things. So, you know, being the producer and being the director, because I like to produce, you like to direct, like it's good to know who is responsible for everything else.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful. It's one of those things where sometimes I'll get caught in I'll be too familiar with a position where I'll be like, okay, let's stop for a second, just let them do their job. But it is also helpful because it's like, you know what it takes to accomplish certain things. Like, you'll never find me looking for unrealistic setups or unrealistic timing for certain things, because I feel like I've been in all of these positions, or I've been a gaffer. I know what it takes. I know the physical labor that goes into that, and I know I think it just gives me a good background to kind of, spearhead these situations on my own sets, which is pretty cool.
Yes, it's super, super interesting and super helpful to jump into all those different spots. So, Lindsey, like, I know that you've worn a lot of hats over the years. I keep saying that. But when you were, the name had just escaped me. When you were working with your mentor, what kinds of things were you working on, and what kind of like inspired you to go for that kind of role?
So Reed Morano she was a cinematographer for a very long time, but she directed and was the executive producer on The Handmaid's Tale. So she actually won the Emmy for that show, which was pretty cool. She just recently did the rhythm section with Blake Lively. She has a lot of really fun stuff coming up. That was an unbelievable opportunity. I think that she really, in the beginning, really showed me the ropes and kind of like laid down a foundation for me to continue into, I guess, what would be considered the executive industry that is Hollywood, because I think there's a lot of things that are based off of executives, and it's kind of the path that you can grow, which we can talk about more later. But just to have that experience and have been able to work for such a highly acclaimed director, I think gave me not only the confidence I needed to kind of push forward, but also so much insight to how things work from top down. This last, I guess it was about September. Yeah, so I guess last year this time, we were away for prep on an Amazon show that she's directing that'll be out. I don't know now because coronavirus.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot's happened in the last year.
Exactly. The timelines of things are all over the place, but it was such a rewarding experience to kind of be involved with that show from pitch all the way through to kind of pre-pro for it. And we traveled we were on a plane every 5 minutes essentially. But it was really cool to work with executives at that level. And kind of what was most surprising to me is the workflow that I've seen amongst my peers and with you, Celia, and the way that things are produced is kind of very much at par with the level that Amazon Studios will produce things. It's just when you get to those top tiers, there's obviously more people, there's more support, and there's more money. So it gets like, my takeaway was kind of, it almost gets easier in some regard, because you kind of get more support and you get the positions that you may not be able to afford on a smaller budgeted project. But it was really cool to kind of be able to be exposed to that and then work backwards, knowing, okay, this is actually how it's done. So I know that the way that the professionalism I bring to every project I work on, I try to emulate that as much as I can.
That's awesome. For people that don't know much about like the film industry, what is like a day on set like? Like what should you expect for maybe, I guess, a set of that stature?
I guess, yeah, that's like it really depends, because, so I guess if we're speaking to narrative specifically, narrative is a little different, because it kind of depends what's your position, what's your involvement with the production. I think when you get to the level of being an executive or being somebody who's kind of at the top in charge of a show, it's a really fun experience. It's a fun experience for everyone, honestly, but when you're involved with it from the beginning, it's you create this camaraderie with everybody. You guys are in it for the long run. You're all developing and working through this project from the ground stages up. So when you get to set, you already know most people. You're all working towards the same goal. You know, you get to know your film family, so to speak. It's very similar to, like I would say, film and television have a lot of differences, but in this way feel very similar. And then I think, but again, it could be if you're in a position that's more of a freelance position, you come to set and it's kind of, you're on set a day,
Yeah.
or maybe you're only on set for a week. So it kind of varies. It's either you're on that project through and through, or you can be kind of a one and done. Maybe you come on for a week, but all in all, being on set it just is the best. I mean, you know, the food is always really good. I know that's like a funny little anecdote, but the food is really a good part to look forward to, and the crafty is always really fun. But also the people. You're surrounded by really fun, exciting people who love what they do, and I think that just seeing what goes into blocking, you know, block light shoot arrangement, and how you kind of configure and need to readjust how a scene is playing out, or how you need to build on the elements that you have in front of you to kind of get to that end goal of what you're creating. It's just all around a really invigorating, cool experience. A lot of work.
And also, like, how many people does it take to do something narrative like the show that you were on? Because people might think like you just show up and you just film a couple things and then you're done for the day.
Yeah. So again, I think there's so many like tiers to how it can break down. But I think if you're kind of referring to maybe one of your favorite shows, right? It takes, I mean, I'd go as far as saying, like, for The Power, for example, for the show that I was on, just in pre-production, so not even in the production stages yet, we were probably working with over 100 people. And that's kind of a good show to reference for me, just because it's not often that you are this early in your career and get to be exposed to production at that tier, and kind of being with the creative forces behind Chernobyl, for example. Like, I was with all the creative execs on Chernobyl because they're the same people for Power. So it was like just kind of mind-blowing to see from that level. But yeah, I'm trying to think. It's probably like 100 or so in just pre-pro, and then it only grows from there. Depends on the episode, depends on what you're shooting, but.
Yeah, I was working on an MTV show at one point, and it was like 20 people. But like when that's reality. That's reality. You're showing up with a camera and you're kind of going for it.
Oh, that was a reality show?
Yeah, but like when you're working on film sets, like I know I did a film, Batman Patient Zero. We had at least 40, 50 people on set per day. Yeah. So lots of people, and you know, it just shows that like it takes like an army to make something amazing.
Totally. It totally takes a village, and I think I've learned over the past, it's probably the biggest thing I've learned, that I think it's important to always be making something. I don't think it matters what you're shooting, how you're shooting it, because at the end of the day, it's the story that's the most important thing. But when you start to get to the point of trying to make more professional items or more professional films or whatever it may be, it takes a village. I mean, it makes a world of difference to have a person for every position that is required to make that film the best film.
So we have a couple of comments, so we're going to go check those out. First off, Christian Ladagowski says, go BPZ, Batman Patient Zero. He also wants to know if there is any crazy stories from Chernobyl, because he says that must have been a crazy time. Do you have any fun stories from that?
So I didn't work specifically on Chernobyl. I just worked with the executives that were the executives on Chernobyl. So I don't have anything. I'm trying to think of like any stories they might have said that I can't even think. I mean, they're lovely people, but I don't have any specific relics or memories.
No worries.
Cool show.
We have more comments, so don't worry. So Eric says, what's your favorite and least favorite part of creating narrative content?
Oh, that's a good question. My favorite part is probably all the fun stuff of the creative decision making, and I think when you really have that lock script, being able to kind of play around with these ideas that are just going to enhance the story and really give it its substance. I think my least favorite part is there's a lot of, I guess my least favorite part at the stage that I'm at, because I can really only speak to my specific circumstances right now, is logistically making your film is challenging when you don't have a studio backing you, or when you don't have, the funds really. I think like the logistical nightmares and kind of figuring out the production plan is really challenging. And it's probably my least favorite part. I thought for a really long time I wanted to be a producer, and I think kind of after my experience with realizing my brain is such a ping pong ball. You may not be thinking that right now because I've got like my nervous energy on camera front going on, but when I'm typically like in my natural habitat, I'm a human. Also, logistics are just no longer a strength.
I understand. That's why there's so many people doing so many different roles, because you can't be worrying about everything at once unless like you're doing a small shoot like the ones that I do like at a doctor's office, because you have control of the situation. But when you're doing narrative, it's a whole other ballgame, because you are making choices on every single detail of every single thing that is being seen on
totally.
screen.
I think, and you know what, like they both have their smaller projects are so much fun because of all the freedom you have, and it's kind of when it's a one-man band type shoot, it is fun to kind of get back to your roots of just being a person running the show, and from prep to edit, you're in control of that. And I still do that fun, shooting and thing and doing it all myself. But narrative, it's just a whole different beast. It's comparatively, it's like a whole other sector of things, and this was the specificity. Specifically today, my sister's now, and I could see her today. She just was because I'm just being so annoyingly picky about the film, and afterwards I realized it was like, but it wasn't an important little detail.
I get you.
You pick your battles.
Definitely. So speaking of your newest project, I hear that you're working on a film. What is this film? I might also be working on this film.
You might also, Celia, you may also be working on this said film. So it's a short film, and it's kind of the biggest, and I would consider it my directorial debut at this point, because projects prior to this have kind of just been, which of my friends are around this weekend and can we pull off a film? Mm-hmm. But this film has a fairly significant budget behind it for a short film, and it's kind of it's been my baby for a while. And we're going into production very soon, September 12th through the 14th. And we're getting super excited. We've been prepping it for over 6 months, which is a lot of time for a short. You don't typically get that much time. But I think because of where this story is going and the bigger picture of things, there's kind of been more tie-ins in the outside of this shorts universe, if that makes sense.
Definitely makes sense. What is the project called, and what is it about? In the little description it just says Seasick, so I don't know.
Okay. So it's called Seasick, and the film is about a deckhand who works on the ferries, and she ends up sending a wrong text message that pretty much puts her entire day in a limbo, and causes her to confront something that she is not ready to confront just yet. And I'll leave it at that. You'll have to check it out to see what happens. But it's a really fun story, and I think that the backdrop for the story is really cool, and it's something that we hope to kind of take further with pitching and development later on.
So, obviously, you're towards the end of, I guess, pre-production at this point. But
that's a scary thought, Celia. That's scary.
No, end of the 6 months. Very different. Yeah. We still have 2 weeks. You're coming towards the end of pre-production. What were some of the things you had to do in pre-production, especially through the whole coronavirus ordeal?
Oh, coronavirus ordeal. It's been an ordeal. You're asking some really solid questions.
I'm trying. I'm rusty. I used to do these a lot more. Like, I used to do a couple of these a week.
I would be the worst interviewer. I like, you're firing some solid questions. So things, pre-pro, sorry, I lost my thought.
It's all good.
We have done, I would say, the most challenging thing that we've faced thus far probably is coronavirus. I think that there's been a lot of things we've had to work around because of that. More specifically, for anybody listening who would be interested in making something in this time, Sag regulations and the guidelines that come with Sag have been a little bit insane. And I think that Sag themselves are in limbo with how they're navigating the pandemic and how their new policies are going to be implemented. So it's kind of like, you have to get approval for them in order for your SAG actors to be eligible to work on your project, union protections. And with COVID, there's a lot of really strict things in place. But I think for me, a struggle was that they're still developing these protocols and things. So it's not necessarily clear on the website, which anyone dealing with SAG, I'm sure this is not a surprise. But it was a little bit of it came out of left field that they were throwing some elements at us that we weren't necessarily anticipating. So I think in pre-pro, like, that was something that got a little tricky. But just as like a general pre-pro timeline, we kind of, we locked the script. I'd been working on the script for the better half of, I would say, a year. It kind of took on many forms and shapes. So I'd say that the actual script that we locked went through about 7 revisions, and that was probably 6 months or so that we worked on that specific storyline. But there was other variations, so this project has been for over a year. And after that was kind of like the first step for me. I had to have a long script before we kind of entered the pre-pro phase. And from there, my producer Sam kind of set forth with the locations to kind of start getting the ball moving with logistics. And we're working on a boat for the entire shoot, which is, I don't know why I do this to myself, because this is the second film I've shot on a boat. I have this, I guess, I don't know what my deal is, but I just love shooting things on the water. But
it's over by Fire Island too, so that's,
yes,
we have to take a boat to get there.
Yes, we do. We sure do. So that was also like a huge tricky part of pre-pro, and one that we're still kind of, I actually have a call later tonight to kind of hammer through the rest of those details in terms of schedule. But just working with the ferry was they've been phenomenal. The Fire Island ferries, check them out. They're amazing. They've been so gracious and very helpful, just helping us get the logistics squared away. I actually was a deckhand, so this is where the story kind of, I guess, started and evolved from. So I did have some contacts down there still that were incredibly helpful. It wouldn't have been able to happen without them. So that was a huge hurdle to come over. And then I guess after we started getting logistics with locations moving, we ended up doing casting. So we went with the casting director who sent out our breakdowns, and then we got a huge list of selects, and then we went through the selects. My lead at this point was already cast. I kind of had been discussing the role of our lead with Pauline Chalamet, who was just in King of Staten Island. She's also probably she's just so phenomenal, but like, she also went to LaGuardia School of Arts, which is I always find that so fascinating, because the kids that come out of that school are just unbelievably talented, as she is. But then we casted those 2 additional roles of the script. And then, we just continued to kind of lock in the various crew personnel and get that underway. And now we're at the stages where we're just finalizing and getting everything completely ironed out so that there's no surprises and that things are just as smooth sailing as it possibly can be.
Of course. So in the pre-pro process, like, what is your favorite part? Is it the writing, the planning, the figuring out the costumes? What is your favorite part?
My favorite part of pre-pro is probably, I mean, I love meeting new people. I think it's fun to kind of to interact and get an idea of new crew, because I think like finding your film family is always like a fun thing. So I think with this project specifically, I've loved getting to know each and every one of the crew on the project, which they're all incredibly talented. It's a really cool project, so it's just exciting to get to work with these people. But also creatively, I love getting into working with my talent and kind of fleshing out the backstories and the subtexts of each scene. Really all the creative stuff, all the creative decision making is my favorite part.
It's a good answer. That's the part that stresses me out personally, but you know, that just means that we could work together.
Exactly.
So my question, another one of my questions is like, how did you go about rehearsals? Like, because obviously, like, it's really hard to get everyone into one room these days.
Yeah. So with this project, I did a Zoom call with everyone at first, just when I got my talent, and then from there, we kind of just gauged what their comfortability was currently with coronavirus, and I invited them out to check out the location because I wanted to get to know them personally and be able to foster a more close relationship leading into this kind of intimate direction, but also because it's Fire Island. It's so fun. I mean, just getting on that boat, going over, it's sunny. There's a little, well, I won't say. I can't tell you. I'll have to tell you. Yeah.
Well, you could tell me after we're off of the live because you know, I love Fire Island. I haven't been there in probably like 2 summers.
What? Oh, well, you'll be there soon.
Yes, I'll be there and I'll get a nice tan while I'm there as well.
Yeah.
So when you were going and you were trying to figure out locations, like I know a lot of people struggle with locations, but were you able to use locations from like a bunch of your different experiences on Fire Island and working as a deckhand?
Yeah, totally. I think that this script came from a place that was, you know, they always say that the most personal is kind of your best writing. So this script came from a place that was familiar to me, and I think I knew the space so well that I wrote geared towards the location, because I think the location of this is what feels, the story is also very special to me, but the location is equally as special, which I think is not often the case with writing or with like narrative stuff, you know, give or take. But I think that locations are always a really tricky thing. I've experienced many times locations being probably the most difficult at this level, because it's, if you don't know someone who has access, it's kind of, that's where you can have a huge money suck, and you can lose a lot of your budget in locations. So I think that with Seasick specifically, it's been really great to have the in with the location to be able to coordinate and make sure that the script can come to life without putting us in a situation that we can't financially pull it off.
I feel like that's one of the things that a lot of people deal with when they're trying to do films, especially if it's like a senior film in college or something small, because obviously, like, I'm going to just use like a college film as a reference, because you might only have like, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000 budget, which is nothing in terms of like paying for locations. I know that like there was one point for one of the films that I was doing, we had to pay for a permit for Kings Park Psychiatric. We had to pay for this. We had to pay for that. It's like $8,000 for this. It's an expense that you don't think about, and especially in the writing process, you're not saying, all right, well, I'm going to write this into this big warehouse that we're going to need to get a big warehouse, and we're going to have to pay for this big warehouse. It's one of those things that I feel like if you don't plan for it, it's going to end up getting changed within the script because the creative and the logistic, like we were talking about before, they really dictates a lot. Yeah.
They constantly battle each other. It's kind of like there's, you know, you should never limit yourself with what you're writing. I think that if you can gear your brain into 2 sections, and it's kind of like, what do you see with this project? Like for me, I knew that I wanted to shoot this film. So, or if I go into something that I'm writing, typically because I'm a director, I want to shoot what I'm writing. So for me, I'll try to not limit my thinking in that regard, but I'll try to maybe shift or make things a little bit more logistically friendly. But also, if you're someone who's a writer, I think, you know, your imagination is endless, and there's no studio that will shy away from a logistical nightmare. There's always a way to shoot something. I mean, look at Avatar and how much work went into that with James Cameron trying to figure out how they physically could shoot that film. And there's so many screenwriting film festivals that, you know, they don't care if you can shoot it or not. It's all about how imaginative and how solid your story is. So I think it depends where you're trying to go with the project, how you should enter into it.
Definitely. I think a lot of people get nervous about that. Like, they're like, oh, I wrote this script, but I'm never going to be able to shoot it. Like,
yeah.
Do you think that is a typical hurdle that people have to get over when getting into narrative writing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the hardest thing, filmmaking is hard. I mean, plain and simple, filmmaking is incredibly difficult. And I think beyond just the physical limitations of filmmaking, I think that you deal with a lot. You deal with a lot of personality in filmmaking, especially when you start to get into the politics of Hollywood. There's a lot that goes into it that makes filmmaking hard beyond, logistically speaking. But I think that where there's a will, there's a way. And if you want it bad enough, there's always something you could do to figure it out. And I think that you just find the people that you want to work with and that feel like great collaborators, and push forward with them, because it makes the process a lot easier every step of the way to have people who believe in you and kind of back you from your, I guess, creative decision making, and believe in your vision as well. It makes it a lot easier. But it's definitely a labor of love. I felt like with this film, I've definitely had points where I'm like, this is impossible. We just have to stop. And my producer, Sam, who's absolutely killing it and is one of the best producers I've worked with, has just kind of pushed it along every which way that I felt like it's not possible anymore. She's found a way to make it possible. And I think that finding those people are the most important people to make things happen at this level.
100%. So my next question for you is, wow, questions. The question is just what are the things that you are going to be working on in the final weeks, like leading up to the actual shoot?
I think so. Leading up to the actual shoot. So now we're 2 weeks out as I look at the calendar and shit.
Yes. Don't worry. It'll be okay.
I think now we're at the point where everything is pretty much in place and everything that was difficult has been sorted. Now it's kind of just finalizing the last outstanding items and making sure that all department heads have what they need, and all department heads are on the same page with a plan and understand the shoot schedule and understand what each scene is going to take to complete, and basically just tying everything up with a bow and making sure that everything is set and everyone has what they need.
Do you think that the work that you've done professionally is going to impact how you approach directing on this film?
Totally. Oh yeah, totally. I think that since this, like I said before, this is definitely a bigger project for me. I direct commercials in the city and I direct, smaller type stuff here and there. But narratively speaking, this is definitely a bigger project for me. And I think that it's 13 years in the making, 13 years of my production career that I've been able to expose myself to the different, in the different sectors of things. And I think that it's only informed every decision that I'm making. And, I think that being ultra specific, while it's very annoying to all the people around me right now, I think that it's helping me fine tune the vision that I originally saw for the project. And, I worked for a director who I greatly admire and love and respect, and who's been a phenomenal mentor to me. So I think seeing her work and seeing the way that she worked has been incredibly helpful for me to develop how I'm approaching this project. And just little, little tricks and things that I would have never known if not for that experience. So I would say that there's a lot coming full circle for me in terms of stepping into the directing chair for this project. But I'm excited to see how they translate onto the screen, because I feel like for the first time, there's a lot of learning behind every decision that I'm making with this film.
So obviously, like, the directors and the actual cast have to have like a very close relationship to portray the story in like a meaningful way, in the way that the director and writer anticipated. What do you think are a few things that like people who are getting into directing and acting should keep in mind when going into doing scenes? I only ask because I know that we have actors that watch this show.
No, that's a good question. I think, well, I could speak actually, because I think I had this revelation after watching so many tapes. But I think when people are able to take something and play around with it and make it their own, that's a really enticing thing. And it's a really interesting thing to see people who are able to not only do a take of exactly how it's meant to be read, and then maybe do a take that feels more like improvisational and more fun and shows like a different perspective into the story. Because not only is it great to see range, but it's also great for the director to see that you're invested in the story and that you're invested in bringing a role to life. And I think just, inhabiting that role so much so that it's a very naturalistic and, I give actors so much credit, because it's not an easy thing to just say, oh, here's how to be a good actor. Like, there's so many facets to that. And I think the greatest actors that I've been able to observe and kind of learn from have been really great listeners. They take what they're hearing. They're very reactionary. They're in that conversation. They're not acting. It's them portraying the role. They've inhabited this role. And I think that in any way, if you can do that, you come out with a far greater performance.
We have a cool comment over here. So listening to this ambitious director is inspiring. Can't wait for this film.
Oh, Rachel, I love you. That's my friend, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel. How's it going? I told everyone, make sure you leave comments for us, because I will put the comments up. So if anyone watching has anything to say or anything to ask, feel free. So, Lindsey, we've been talking a lot about directing and a lot about, like, the last question was working with actors. If someone wants to get into creating in general, creating narrative content, what would your advice be for them?
I think if you're saying specifically creating narrative content, I think that work on, either collaborating with writers if you don't see yourself as a writer, or writing for yourself, and finding stuff that you can easily enough shoot and kind of hone your skills and be able to explore different approaches to things. I think the more that you shoot, I think that's such a classic piece of advice that you hear from so many people, but it really is so true, because the more that you're out and the more that you're out shooting, the more that you learn. And I think that I'm definitely one who understands that the financial limitations of doing time can be really stressful. So I think it's also equally as beneficial to get on projects that you feel, if you want to get into the narrative space, either people are really willing to help you. So I think reaching out and seeing how you could potentially collaborate maybe with a director you really admire, or somebody who's or an actor, or anybody who's doing stuff that you admire. I think finding those collaborations and seeing a way into it, either for learning purposes or collaborations, is always a really strong direction to move to kind of grow that skill.
I feel like back from when we were in college, that was more so where we all learned. We learned on set. You learned
Totally.
from the upperclassmen, because not to knock the professors, but like I never knew what they were grading us on.
Oh, never.
It was go shoot the thing, and it was just like,
Totally.
all right,
Yeah.
I'll shoot the thing. But it's more about like learning by doing and learning by watching where you're going to be able to succeed. I know that like you can go on YouTube and find millions and millions and millions of short films. People are making them all the time. It's just about finding where the people are that are doing these things.
Yeah. And I think like learning from those too. I think that short films and stuff that's online, there's so much you can watch and learn from that if you're not physically shooting all the time, I think looking and researching and learning all the time, that's equally as important. And then when you combine those skills, you're only growing in your efforts to become a more well-rounded creative.
I think that like one of the things that I like, even with my business, like at some point I want to get an intern. Like I want to teach people like by having them come and like seeing how I approach things. I actually had I shot a wedding recently. Yeah, a wedding in the middle of the pandemic. But my cousin was assisting me. Yeah, she was bringing me things, and I told her to go to Starbucks and get me a water. But you know, like she was watching me all day, and she's like, "What exactly are you doing when you're hitting all of the buttons on the camera?" And like, I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, "Am I really doing it that much?" Like, it's a second nature for me. But those little questions are the like the way that people learn, and the biggest way for them to get the insight from their peers. Because if you just stand there and you're just watching, you're not learning. You're observing. So I would say also making sure to ask the questions, even if you think it's the stupidest question ever. If it's actually a stupid question, you know, you don't have to ask, but it might be some little tidbit of information that you carry with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So
I think finding those questions to ask is always, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're around someone that you really admire, or you really love their work or anything like that, find a really solid question that you need the answer to and definitely ask it. I think I've definitely been a huge fan of Google. If I don't know something, or if I've ever been in a situation with Reed where I'm like, for example, we were talking about a needle drop once, and I didn't know what that was up until this moment. But she was just talking about, you know, the post on this movie she was working on and just speaking to the music on it. And she had mentioned that she really wanted to use a needle drop. And I was like, what the hell is a needle drop? I was like, what could that possibly be? And, you know, me at this point, having done this for so long, I thought like, oh, I know everything there is to know. It's like, not a chance. I'm learning a new term or a new something every single day. But a needle drop, for anyone who doesn't know, is when you use a song, like a song that has lyrics. I didn't know that, but
I didn't know that either. But now I
right?
learned something. So you know, learning things every day.
Like a lyrical song versus score, because the score is more just like like that. I guess no chords, no vocal chords, whereas a needle drop is like a song.
Interesting. Because like if you think about it, sometimes like you'll hear just I was about to say backtrack. That is not correct. You hear the song without lyrics in a movie, but sometimes you hear it with lyrics. So like I guess it's
needle drop versus score. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Interesting.
I know, you learn something new.
We have another comment right before I was going to ask my question. Perfect, because mine could. So this is another Hofstra alum, Sean McNally.
Oh,
McNally.
Sean.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sean? I just like stuttered over your last name. I was actually talking to him on Zoom yesterday. I think it was yesterday. There's no days anymore. But have you ever had any moments where you feel like creativity isn't coming, and how do you deal with keeping yourself motivated and fresh while working on a project?
Oh yeah, I feel like I definitely go through spells where maybe I stress myself out too much, or I'm like my brain is just not firing ideas like it typically does. I think that I am somebody who's my brain is always just running 100 miles an hour. So I feel like I get these crazy ideas all throughout the day. So when I go through periods of time where I'm not having those, I start to feel like a little creepy, because I mean, the notes in my phone is just like endless notes of just ideas that strike me in the middle of, you know, whenever. But when I'm going through those weird ruts, I think working out and meditating have been a total game changer for me. And I haven't been doing it this month, like, because I've just been so busy, and it's crazy to see how much of a difference it makes just in my ability to like mellow out and just focus on what's important. Like, I feel like I need to get back into it. But that's really helpful for me when I feel like I'm going through a creative dry spell, or just even going for like a drive or putting myself in a public situation, because I think inspiration strikes when you're observing something that you wouldn't normally see. So I feel like for me, it's always really helpful to put myself in a situation of, I don't know, like a public place, or I'll always do something that makes me feel uncomfortable. If I feel creatively stuck, I'll put myself in an uncomfortable situation. And that also, whether it be me doing something that I embarrass myself, or whether it be like I'm, again, observing, those have been really strong elements to coming up with some pretty fun ideas.
I could see where that would like help with that, because it makes you kind of think a little bit about like, how am I actually going to get myself out of this embarrassing situation?
Oh, yeah.
Rather than like, oh, imagine what would happen if this person was doing this in the middle of somewhere. Like, you're actually like getting yourself out of your own head.
Yeah.
I totally agree with the going somewhere. I am a big travel person, not lately, unfortunately.
Yeah, well,
But my thing is like, I get burnt out doing not all, most of my stuff's not narrative, but like, and there's still creativity in creating different kinds of content, especially when you're working in corporate with businesses that don't know how to do it. So my thing was always traveling or going somewhere pretty, just to sit around and like slow down for a little bit. Because if you just keep yourself going like this, eventually you're just gonna like, you're gonna burn out. So you just need to make sure that you catch the signs of that before that happens. You better get on your meditations before this runs away.
because you just said that for you, Celia, I will. Starting tonight, it's funny because I with everyone home, my family's all home with COVID quarantine stuff, that it's finding a quiet moment is between the film and not just physically not having it, and then also just like the craziness of being home. It's like, but for you, I'm going to start meditating again.
All right, perfect. And I know what you mean. I personally, like, I live by myself, but when I go out and visit my parents, there's mom, dad, brother, sister, 4 dogs, and the dogs all want my attention.
4 dogs. We have 4 dogs too.
Oh, really?
Very fun, but crazy, right?
Yes, definitely. My parents have 3 mini schnauzers and a Bichon poodle mix. So the mini schnauzers require a lot of attention. Sam, the other one, he's just like, hey, I'm here. What's up? But yeah, I think that that's something that is overlooked a lot, and especially right now, because there are some crazy things going on in the world. People should take the time to make sure that they're having a creative outlet and doing things to make sure that their mental state doesn't get burnt out, like I was just saying. So
yeah,
I think
it's important.
I think it's I've been posting a lot about that on Instagram.
Good. I feel like it's like good to hear other people feel that way, because I feel like it's always one of those things where when you look around, everybody's just constantly moving, and it's kind of that comparison thing where you get down on yourself and you're like, I should be doing more. But it's like, no, you need to do yourself the favor, sit back, relax, let your juices fill back up, and or recharge your juices. That was just like the complete wrong. You catch my drift. And and just like take care of yourself.
I realized I had mute on. I have like an AC on. I was like, we're both here. We're having this conversation. But Lindsey, if you had a dream project where money was not an option, what would you want to do?
Oh, I actually have this notebook of like a ton of ideas that are kind of my dream projects for when money is not an issue, or money's always an issue, honestly, but for when money is less so the element of whether something can be made or not kind of a thing. But there's this really cool book that I would love to develop, like absolutely love to develop. And then there's also like, I have a really cool story that I'm working on a feature with of kind of like a story that's near and dear to my heart, but also like a comedy, like a big family comedy, but with a twist that I don't think we've seen quite yet. So I definitely have a ton of things that I would love to do. I feel like every idea would be an ideal one to just do if money wasn't a concern.
Well, you would be making things every single day if money wasn't
Yeah.
a concern. But
that would be
the
the
great
dream.
thing, though, because like just being able to be creative and coming up with the ideas is amazing.
Yeah.
So I know that you have been raising some money for your film. Are you still doing things with donations and backers?
Yes, we are. We are a film independent sponsored project, which has been really cool. And our donation page is 100% tax deductible, and we're still collecting donations all the way through post. We'll likely be collecting donations because it takes an entire bunch. It's
I'm trying to get it on. Here we go.
There it is. There it is.
Did it.
Yeah. There we go. And yeah, we're accepting donations for the foreseeable future, and any donation helps. I mean, every penny goes such a long way. I know I've had a lot of people be like, "I'm sorry, I wish it was more," but you guys have no idea how much even $1 goes with making a film, because it does get very expensive, and it's always good to have support, whether it be financially or just by following our Instagram page or just kind of checking in with the project. It means a lot to us, and it means a lot to the team behind it.
I was making sure I got all the way to the bottom of the the page over here. Yeah, like I said, new software, had to make sure I could do it, but I got it up there. And
I'm impressed. You're a tech genius over there.
I'm trying. But if you guys want to check out that page and read everything, the link is in the description wherever you're watching this, because this is on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So it should be there, guys, if you want to check it out. And what is I'm going to pull it up, but what is the Instagram called?
It's Seasick Film.
I got it. One more. I got this. It's loading.
You're a pro.
Here we go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
So this, I'm assuming, is going to have some behind the scenes and everything while we're shooting and stuff?
Yep. That'll have all the updates, all the behind the scenes. That's Sam, our producer today, doing a ton of prep work and doing some last minute final items. And she's just been seriously nonstop. I mean, look at that setup. She's got like a million binders out. But this is kind of like the page of all things updates.
Awesome. So, Lindsey, if anyone wants to follow you or keep up with what you're doing, where's the best place for them to follow you, reach out, whatever it may be?
I am on Instagram, and my handle is at Lindsey Ryan 229. I think. Is there an underscore in there? I don't know if there is. I don't think.
I'll tell you in 2 seconds.
No,
there is no underscore.
Okay, cool. There's no underscore. So Lindsey Ryan 229. And then also, if anybody's interested in connecting any further, if you want to help out on the project or just kind of get to know each other, I'm always, open to collaborating and meeting new people. So either like an Instagram message, or my email is lindseyRyan229@gmail.com. So I'm always happy to send that out to anyone who wants to reach me on email.
Awesome. So I really want to thank you for coming on here today. I think we had a really awesome show, and we had some great people in the comments. I'm going to pop a few of you guys up.
Yes, thank you.
Larry was here. Christian was here. Eric was here. Rachel was here. Sean.
Awesome.
I love when people like hop in the comments, because it's like, it's so much more fun having like the interaction.
Yeah,
and it's just like, oh, this person's watching. I know you. But again, yes, our fans, our wonderful fans. But yeah, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to hop on here. I know that your schedule is super busy these days, but hopefully, like, this is a precursor to all of these people wanting to check out the film once it's done.
Yes, thanks everyone for tuning in and being here to hear more about the project. And Celia, thank you so much for hosting me and having this live stream, which I'm still impressed by the technology. It's been so lovely. Your questions are incredible.
I try. I feel like I'm rusty, but like I'm glad that
You're killing it.
Perfect.
The next Ellen, really.
Trying. I would like to have my own show like that, but I feel like I would be like I feel like I would be a little too awkward for that. But who knows? Who knows? But on that note, I'm going to pull you down. I'm going to close up the show, and I'll see you in a second.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Celia. Bye.
Hey, guys. So, thank you so much for tuning in today. We had a really interesting conversation. We talked about Lindsey's new project. We talked a little bit about narrative. We talked about all these different film, I guess, related topics. I think one of my favorite parts was when we were talking about directors working with actors, because there's so many different nuances that you wouldn't know if you weren't in the industry. So, if you tuned in late and want to watch this over again, it will be on the Celia Werner Productions Facebook page. It will be on LinkedIn under Celia Werner. It'll be on YouTube. It'll also be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. And I really encourage you guys to like or subscribe so that you guys know exactly who's going to be on each week, and you know when to tune on to ask your questions. If you guys want to follow Lindsey, her links are in the description, and if you guys want to check out her film page, it's there as well. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Hopefully next time I don't blend in with like the couch and the green screen, but I'll do my best. Bye, guys.